There comes a moment when the things you once loved no longer touch you the way they used to. The music feels distant. The conversations feel heavy. Even the activities that once excited you now pass through you without leaving a trace. You try to feel something, but every experience fades too quickly. Joy doesn't stay. Pleasure doesn't settle. Life keeps moving, and somehow you don't feel like you're moving with it. You look around, and nothing seems wrong. Yet something inside feels quietly missing, not broken, just empty, as if the world has lost its color and no effort can bring it back. You haven't lost joy, you've just been living so much in your mind that you forgot how to be here. 1. You stopped feeling because you started thinking too much. Joy leaves not because life becomes less beautiful, but because the mind becomes louder than experience itself. When thinking takes the place of feeling, you are no longer present with life as it unfolds. You are only present with your thoughts about it. The moment you try to interpret every feeling, you stop feeling it. You begin to live from memory and expectation rather than connection. Joy cannot survive when the mind tries to own the moment. It slips away, not because it is gone, but because you are no longer here to receive it. Thinking is useful, but when you worship the mind, it becomes a barrier. The mind wants to analyze life, categorize it, compare it, and judge it. But joy is not a thought, it is an experience. The more you think about how to be happy, the further happiness drifts. The moment becomes something to evaluate instead of something to live. You are not tasting life, you are describing it in your head. You are not living, you are thinking about living. Every time you ask, "Why am I not happy?" you strengthen the very mind that blocks happiness. The question becomes a trap. It convinces you that joy is something to figure out. You try to solve it like a puzzle. But joy does not respond to questions. It responds to awareness. Joy arrives when thinking pauses, even for a moment. Not when you understand life, but when you experience it without needing to understand. When thinking becomes excessive, you stop noticing simple things. You do not feel the warmth of sunlight. You only remember that it used to make you happy. You do not taste your food. You think about other meals you've had before. You do not listen to music. You compare it to something else. You are not with the moment. You are with the mind's commentary about the moment. The commentary replaces the experience, and joy disappears behind the narration. The more you think, the more you turn life into an object you want to control. You begin to demand that experiences match your expectations. Thinking tells you how joy should look, how peace should feel, how happiness should arrive. And because life rarely follows your ideas, you stop feeling what is here, waiting for what is not. Expectation becomes the enemy of presence. You are not unhappy because life is empty. You are unhappy because you are waiting for life to be different before you allow yourself to feel it. Excessive thinking turns the mind into a judge that never rests. It evaluates every moment, asking, "Is this good enough? Is this enjoyable? Is this meaningful?" And in asking, it blocks the very joy it is trying to measure. You cannot enjoy the present if you are constantly checking whether you're enjoying it. Joy is simple, but thinking demands guarantees. It wants control before surrender. It wants certainty before peace. Joy cannot survive under interrogation. The mind believes joy must be earned through accomplishments or emotional peaks. It seeks intensity, stimulation, success, drama, validation. It believes that happiness is found in extremes. But the more the mind demands intensity, the more ordinary life loses its glow. Everyday moments seem dull only to a mind addicted to excitement. Real joy is quiet. It is subtle. It grows in small moments. But when the mind wants fireworks, it ignores the candlelight. Overthinking also numbs the body. You lose connection with the senses. You forget how to feel deeply because you are trapped in thought. Your emotions become muted. Your heart feels distant. Your breath becomes shallow. Your presence disappears into the noise of the mind. Joy cannot enter a body that is not inhabited. To feel again, you must come back to your breath, to sensation, to awareness, to the aliveness inside your own being. When feelings arise, the mind tries to interpret them instead of letting them move through you. Even positive feelings are analyzed until they lose their purity. The mind turns every emotion into a problem to solve. But feelings are not problems. They are waves of life flowing through you. The moment you stop labeling them, they return to being simply what they are, movements of energy, not messages of identity. Joy is hidden behind the mind's need to define everything. You lose joy not because you feel too little, but because you think too much about what you feel. The mind becomes a filter that separates you from direct experience. Reality becomes second-hand. You start living through ideas rather than through senses. You forget how to be with life without narrating it internally. The narrator becomes louder than the scene itself, and you begin to believe that you are disconnected. When you slow down thinking, even slightly, something returns. Not excitement, not pleasure, but a quiet aliveness. The taste of your breath, the stillness between sounds, the softness beneath emotion. You begin to sense life again without needing it to match a mental image. Joy begins in these small returns to presence. It does not need a reason. It does not need to be impressive. It only needs you to notice what is already here. You stopped feeling because you started living inside your thoughts instead of inside the moment. Nothing is wrong with you. Nothing needs to change in your life. You simply forgot to be here. Joy has not left you. You have been absent from yourself. When thinking softens, feeling returns. Joy returns, not as excitement, but as the quiet realization that life does not need to be understood to be enjoyed. It only needs to be experienced. 2. Joy cannot be found in stimulation. The more you chase stimulation, the more life begins to lose its taste. Stimulation may excite you, but it cannot fulfill you. It gives the mind a brief surge of pleasure, then leaves you emptier than before. The reason nothing satisfies you for long is not because the world is dull, but because stimulation is not joy. It is only a momentary distraction that fades as soon as the mind gets used to it. The more you depend on stimulation, the more numb you become to the quiet beauty of simple things. Stimulation is always temporary, so it constantly demands more excitement, more intensity, more novelty, more entertainment. You begin to need louder music, faster results, stronger sensations, bigger goals. The thrill that once satisfied you gradually feels ordinary. What used to make you happy becomes something you barely notice. The mind keeps raising its demands, and life becomes a race you can never win. Even moments of pleasure lose their meaning when they are consumed with expectation. The mind confuses stimulation with happiness because both feel intense at first. But stimulation is a spark that burns out, while true joy is like a quiet flame that keeps burning without effort. When you seek constant highs, you disconnect from presence. You are not experiencing life, you are chasing sensation. But joy does not grow through intensity. It grows through awareness. It deepens when there is less noise, not more. Joy is never loud. It is discovered in the silence that stimulation tries to avoid. If you rely on stimulation, ordinary moments become unbearable. Silence feels threatening. Rest feels boring. Stillness feels empty. The absence of stimulation exposes the mind's restlessness. You begin to feel uncomfortable doing nothing because you have forgotten how to be. The mind wants constant movement because it fears what stillness will reveal. It fears the space where thought loses control, but that space is exactly where joy lives. Joy cannot be delivered by external experiences because real joy is not an experience. It is a state of being. Experiences come and go. They rise and fall like waves. If you attach your happiness to them, then your happiness must suffer the same impermanence. When the wave crashes, you feel disappointment. When the excitement fades, you feel loss. But joy is not dependent on peaks. It is the ocean beneath them. It remains even when nothing special happens. The reason stimulation fails is that it leaves you dependent. Your happiness hangs on something outside of you. You begin to need the next success, the next compliment, the next distraction. Without it, the mind panics. It believes something is missing, so it pushes you to chase something new, something different, something more. It never allows you to rest. The more you search outside, the more you feel disconnected from the life within you. Constant stimulation pulls you away from the depth of the present moment. You become addicted to the surface of life, always looking for the next experience instead of entering deeply into the one you already have. Depth is what brings joy, not variety. A flower you truly see brings more joy than 100 flowers you rush past. A single breath, felt completely, nourishes more deeply than hours of entertainment. Joy comes from attention, not stimulation. Stimulation numbs you because it blocks your sensitivity. You lose touch with subtle emotions, quiet beauty, gentle presence. You stop noticing the softness of life. Real joy requires sensitivity, the ability to feel the moment fully. But stimulation trains you to seek extremes, to crave louder emotions and bigger impressions, so the mind becomes insensitive to the quiet richness of existence. You are not unhappy. You are overstimulated. When you crave stimulation, you chase life instead of receiving it. You become hungry even when nothing is missing. You mistake emptiness for boredom, even though boredom is simply the mind's resistance to stillness. If you sit in boredom without escaping, you will discover that it dissolves into awareness. Joy emerges not when life becomes exciting, but when you stop resisting the present moment. Boredom is not lack of stimulation, it's lack of attention. Stimulation is a habit, and habits seek repetition. The mind becomes conditioned to expect entertainment, challenge, and sensory reward. But joy requires no habit. It does not repeat itself, because it does not need to be remembered. Joy is fresh every time you touch the present moment. It cannot grow through repetition. It grows through awareness. You can experience the same moment many times and feel something new each time if you are awake to it. When stimulation fades, it leaves you with the very emptiness it was trying to hide. That emptiness is not a problem, it is an invitation. It is life calling you back to yourself. When there is nothing to distract you, you begin to feel your own depth again. You begin to sense the aliveness behind thought. If you can stay in that emptiness without running away, it turns into presence, and presence becomes joy, not excitement, but a quiet wholeness. Joy cannot be found in stimulation because joy is not something you consume. It is something you realize. It does not come from what you do, but from what you notice. The moment you stop chasing the next feeling, life reveals itself, and in that simplicity, joy appears naturally, not as a reward, not as a sensation, but as your own awareness returning home. 3. The ego wants intensity, not peace. The ego is not interested in peace. Peace does not give it identity. Peace does not make it feel important. The ego feeds on intensity because intensity keeps the mind busy. It wants emotional highs and dramatic lows. It wants to chase excitement and then suffer from its loss. It wants noise, conflict, stimulation, goals, problems, victories, and failures. Anything that keeps it active. Peace is too silent for the ego. In silence, the ego disappears. Intensity convinces you that you are truly living, when in fact you are only reacting. The ego mistakes emotional turbulence for being alive. It seeks experiences that shock, thrill, provoke, and challenge. It wants relationships full of drama, dreams full of pressure, and achievements that demand constant struggle, because in that struggle, the ego feels real. But that feeling of aliveness is actually a distraction from your deeper presence, the quiet awareness beneath the noise. The ego believes that something is missing unless life feels dramatic. It wants love to be overwhelming, success to be spectacular, happiness to feel powerful. It does not value simplicity. It sees peace as boredom, love as too quiet, joy as too gentle. So life's subtle beauty becomes invisible. The ego wants life to impress it, but the truth is that life is not here to entertain the ego. It is here to be lived, not consumed. The ego confuses depth with intensity. It believes the strongest feelings must be the truest. It wants passion that shakes you, goals that exhaust you, and happiness that overwhelms you. But intensity burns out quickly. It leaves emptiness behind. True depth is the opposite. It stays, it grows, it nourishes. It is not loud, it is quiet. The ego cannot accept that quietness might be more alive than stimulation, because quietness does not feed ego identity. The ego wants to chase something it can own. It wants experiences it can label. This made me happy. This changed my life. This defines my worth. It keeps a scorecard of sensations. But peace gives nothing to measure. Peace cannot be owned. It cannot be turned into an achievement. It does not give the ego a story to hold on to. In peace, the ego loses control, and so it prefers emotional chaos over stillness. Intensity gives the ego something to fight. It wants problems to solve, obstacles to conquer, people to impress, expectations to fulfill. Without a battle, the ego does not know who it is, so it creates problems even when life is simple. It inflates small challenges into inner wars. It cannot rest, because rest feels like death to ego identity. The ego would rather suffer dramatically than be quietly content. Because the ego craves intensity, it rejects ordinary moments. It does not want a quiet walk, a simple meal, a slow conversation, a still morning. It wants stimulation to feel important, but ordinary moments are where presence lives. They contain a beauty that does not demand attention. True joy hides in them, waiting to be noticed. The ego misses these gifts, rushing past them in search of something more impressive. When intensity fades, the ego feels empty. That emptiness is not a problem. It is an opportunity. It is the space where peace begins. But the ego quickly fills it with distraction, ambition, or emotional turmoil. Anything to avoid the silence where identity dissolves. The ego does not fear sadness or stress as much as it fears stillness, because in stillness there is no story to maintain. Awareness becomes stronger than the ego's narrative. The ego uses intensity to define love. It seeks validation through desire, fear, jealousy, control, and attachment. It believes that deeper love must feel overwhelming. But love rooted in ego does not nourish. It consumes. True love is quiet. It has no urgency. It does not need to prove itself. It does not need to burn. It illuminates gently. The ego does not understand this kind of love because it cannot use it to reinforce identity. The ego turns peace into a goal rather than a presence. It says, one day I will be calm, one day I will relax, one day I will find balance. But peace is not in the future. Peace is not an accomplishment. It is available only when the ego stops seeking something dramatic to become. Peace does not ask you to change your life. Peace asks you to stop leaving the moment. When intensity is no longer mistaken for aliveness, something deeper emerges. Life begins to feel rich without effort. Simple moments become enough. Stillness brings nourishment. You stop craving emotional fireworks and start noticing the quiet miracle of existence. You begin to live, not react. You begin to feel, not perform. You begin to be, not chase. The ego loses interest and awareness takes its place. Joy does not come from intensity. Joy comes from presence. Peace is not a lesser form of happiness. It is the foundation of all happiness. When the ego quiets, peace returns, and joy follows like a natural breath. You do not need a louder life. You need a quieter mind. And in that quietness, you realize that life's true aliveness was never in the intensity, but in the awareness that witnesses it all. 4. You're not empty. You're disconnected from the present moment. You are not empty. You are simply absent from yourself. What feels like emptiness is not a lack of life, but a lack of attention to life as it is happening. When you are disconnected from the present moment, the heart cannot feel, the senses do not awaken, and joy seems distant. Nothing touches you deeply because you are not fully here to receive it. Life is still happening, but you are not participating. Presence is the missing connection, not happiness. When you say, "I feel empty," what you really mean is that you are not connected to the aliveness within this moment. The mind is somewhere else, busy remembering, predicting, comparing, judging. It creates an inner fog that dulls your perception of life. You are not numb because life lost its beauty. You are numb because your attention has been consumed by thinking. Joy cannot reach you if you are lost inside stories instead of the experience unfolding before you. The sense of emptiness appears only when the mind tries to live in a place that doesn't exist, the future or the past. The present moment is where life is alive, where sensation meets consciousness, where being meets experience. But the mind cannot stay here for long. It keeps dragging you back into thoughts. It promises that fulfillment will come later, once things finally go the way you expect. In this chase, you abandon the only place joy is possible, now. Disconnection from the present moment creates the illusion that something is wrong with you. You begin searching for explanations, diagnoses, solutions. You try to fix the emptiness, believing it is a personal flaw. But emptiness is not a flaw. It is a signal. It is the mind's way of telling you that you are not living inside your body, your senses, your breath. You are living in thought, which is always elsewhere. You are not broken. You are distracted. Presence is not something you must create. It is already here, beneath the layers of thinking. The aliveness you seek is not missing. It is simply unnoticed. You do not need to add anything to life to feel whole. You need only to remove the noise that blocks your perception. The moment you feel your breath, the moment you notice sound without naming it, the moment you sense your body without thinking about it, the illusion of emptiness begins to dissolve. When you are disconnected from the moment, even joy becomes something you try to achieve. You start treating happiness as a task. You chase experiences hoping they will fill the void. But joy is not an emotional reward you earn through effort. Joy is the natural state of an undisturbed mind. It is uncovered, not created, and it appears not when life becomes special, but when you become present enough to notice the simplicity already here. Life does not need to change for you to feel joy. You do. The outer world does not block your happiness. Your absence does. You can hold a flower and feel nothing if your mind is elsewhere. You can sit in silence and feel restless if your attention is on the next moment. Joy is not hidden in experiences. It is hidden behind your habit of leaving the experience mentally while your body remains here. Presence reunites you with the world you abandoned through thought. Disconnection makes the world seem dull, but it is not the world that lost color. It is your perception that became clouded. When attention returns to the moment, ordinary things come alive again. A simple breath feels nourishing. A small sound feels beautiful. A quiet moment feels peaceful. You do not need a dramatic life to feel alive. You need a conscious one. The world is not dull. The mind is distracted. To reconnect with the present moment is to stop demanding it to be different. You do not need to improve this moment to feel joy. You only need to experience it without interpretation. Listen without labeling. Look without evaluating. Feel without analyzing. Presence is not in thinking about life, but in directly sensing it. The mind complicates the moment. Awareness returns it to simplicity, and in simplicity, joy is found. When you allow yourself to feel without thinking, something subtle returns. Not a loud excitement, but a quiet completeness. This completeness does not shout. It waits. It waits beneath the busyness of thought. It waits beneath the search for meaning. It waits beneath the craving for stimulation. The moment you stop reaching for something else, you can feel it. Nothing was missing. You were simply too distracted to notice what was already here. You are not empty. You are overflowing with life. You are just not aware of it. The senses are alive. The breath is alive. Every cell carries awareness. The emptiness is only the absence of attention, not the absence of life. When attention returns to the body, the breath, the moment, the illusion disappears, and you rediscover yourself not as someone lacking something, but as awareness itself, quietly complete. The mind will tell you to look elsewhere for joy. It will promise happiness in the next achievement, the next relationship, the next moment. But joy is not in the future, it is in presence. When you stop abandoning the moment, joy stops abandoning you. You are not empty. You are simply here when you stop following thoughts. And in this return to presence, you realize that life was never withholding joy. You were withholding attention. 5. Happiness can't reach a person who is always waiting for the next moment. Happiness can knock on your door many times, but if your attention is always in the future, you will not hear it. You may be surrounded by things that could bring joy, yet remain untouched by them. When the mind is busy planning, anticipating, and expecting, it is not here to receive what life is offering. Happiness does not come later. It arrives through presence, and presence is available only now. If you are mentally elsewhere, happiness has no one to meet. Many people live in a constant almost happy when this changes, almost peaceful when that happens, almost fulfilled when something finally works. The mind turns life into a waiting room, where joy is delayed until conditions match its demands. You stand at the door of the present moment, but refuse to enter, believing the true reward lies ahead. Yet the future never arrives as a moment you can live in. It can only exist in your imagination. When you wait for happiness, you are unconsciously rejecting the moment you are in. You tell yourself that now is not enough, that something else must come to make life complete. This rejection closes the heart to the beauty that is already here. It is not that life lacks joy, but that joy cannot enter a mind always comparing now to a later it has imagined. Happiness does not bloom under conditions. It blooms under attention. The belief that happiness is in the future creates a painful illusion. The idea that you must become someone else before you can feel whole. You think you need to change your life, change your mind, change your circumstances before joy is allowed. But the truth is that joy does not require a different version of you. It requires a different relationship with this moment. The moment you stop delaying joy, the moment you stop arguing with now, happiness becomes possible. Waiting for happiness is a subtle form of resistance. The mind postpones joy because it wants control. It believes it must first fix, achieve, or secure something before it can relax into peace. It believes happiness is a reward for effort, but happiness cannot be earned through resistance. Peace does not come after struggle. The mind tries to push through life, but awareness allows life to flow. Happiness is not a prize for doing, it is the natural result of being. When you constantly wait for the next moment, you miss the only place where life is ever alive, here. You can only breathe now. You can only feel the body now. You can only see, hear, and sense existence now. The future has no senses. It offers no breath, no sound, no life. It is an idea, not an experience. Happiness requires experience, and experience requires presence. You cannot feel the warmth of sunlight tomorrow. You can only feel it now. The mind believes the next moment will be better because it imagines it without discomfort. It imagines only the pleasant parts. But the future, when it arrives, is never as perfect as the fantasy. It comes with ordinary moments, mistakes, pauses, uncertainties. The mind then rejects that moment too, believing happiness lies farther ahead. It becomes a cycle that never ends. Each moment is dismissed for the promise of the next one. Living for the future creates a restlessness that no achievement can satisfy. Even when the mind gets what it wants, it quickly sets another goal. It cannot stay with joy because it does not know how to be still. It cannot dwell in peace because it mistakes stillness for stagnation. The mind is not looking for peace. It is looking for movement, identity, something to solve. But happiness requires resting, not chasing. Peace is not an activity. Future-based living turns every experience into a stepping stone. You do not enjoy what is happening because you are already focused on what comes next. Conversations feel rushed. Meals feel incomplete. Even accomplishments feel unfinished. The mind immediately asks, "What now?" You cannot celebrate because you have never trained yourself to stay. You only know how to reach, not how to receive. You mistake becoming for living. When you live in anticipation, you turn the present moment into a means to an end. You are never simply here. You are using every moment to get somewhere else. But life itself is not a journey to a destination. Life is the destination. The moment you stop using life as a tool for the future, you discover that joy was waiting in every breath, every sensation, every simple act. Happiness is not an outcome. It is a recognition. The idea that happiness is later creates fear. You fear loss, fear failure, fear time slipping away. Because if happiness is somewhere else, you feel constantly behind. You feel pressured to hurry, to fix yourself, to catch up with life. But there is nothing to hurry toward. You cannot fall behind the present moment, because the present is always here. Peace comes when you realize that nothing is missing from now except your attention to it. You cannot meet joy while running toward it. Happiness is not a future event you can chase. It is the quiet realization that life does not need to be different to be deeply felt. When the mind stops planning its happiness, happiness comes as effortlessly as breath. Joy walks in when the door of resistance closes. Peace returns when you stop insisting that the next moment must bring something more meaningful than this one. The mind believes that if it stops searching, life will become stagnant. But the opposite is true. When you stop chasing happiness, you awaken to a richness that chasing could never provide. Stillness is not empty. It is full. Presence is not repetitive. It is endlessly new. When you truly inhabit the moment, even the simplest experience becomes profound. A quiet breath becomes nourishing. A still evening becomes expansive. To stop waiting does not mean you abandon plans or dreams. It means you stop postponing your life while pursuing them. You can walk toward goals without sacrificing presence. You can grow without abandoning now. Life is not asking you to choose between the present moment and the things you desire. It is asking you not to lose yourself on the way. You can work, act, create, and move, but remain here while doing so. When attention returns to the present, the mind's addiction to what's next begins to dissolve. You realize that life is not a series of events, but a continuous unfolding of presence. The moment you stop needing the next moment, the present moment comes alive. Joy does not come from what is happening. It comes from your full participation in what is happening. You finally begin to live instead of waiting to live. Happiness cannot reach a person who is mentally somewhere else. It cannot enter a mind that treats the present as unimportant. Joy needs space, and space is created by letting go of resistance to now. You do not need to get ready for happiness. There is nothing to prepare. Awareness is the only doorway. Joy is not waiting for the perfect moment. Joy is waiting for you to notice this moment fully. The future will not save you from your lack of presence. It cannot heal what only awareness can. If you do not know how to feel life now, you will not feel it later. Presence is not a skill for the future. It is a returning, a remembering, a simple recognition that you are alive and that life is happening in this breath, not the next one. Happiness begins not with change, but with awareness. Joy does not grow in the garden of expectation. It grows in the soil of acceptance. Acceptance of the moment as it is. Acceptance of your own presence as enough. Acceptance that this breath is complete without anything added to it. The moment you stop demanding more from life, life reveals more than you ever asked for. Contentment is not settling for less. It is discovering that nothing was missing. The mind keeps asking, when will happiness come? But happiness is asking, when will you arrive? You are not waiting for joy. Joy is waiting for your attention. It is not in the next chapter, the next accomplishment, the next version of you. It is here, woven into the simplicity of being. When you stop rushing past this moment, happiness stops rushing past you. You come home to yourself. Happiness cannot reach someone who keeps running toward the future. It meets the one who finally stops and listens. It does not enter through achieving, but through noticing, through presence, through stillness. When you no longer hurry to get somewhere else, you find that life has been here all along, quietly offering itself. Joy cannot be chased. It can only be received by the one who has stopped leaving the moment. 6. Joy returns when you stop looking for it. Joy does not respond to effort. You cannot chase it, plan it, or demand it. The more you try to possess joy, the further it moves away. Joy appears only when you stop searching, not because it was missing before, but because your searching kept you from noticing it. You were looking for happiness as an object, something to achieve or acquire, but joy is not something you can hold. It is something you can allow. Seeking joy takes you out of the moment. You try to find it in a future event, in a goal, in an experience that has not yet arrived. The mind imagines a place where happiness will finally be complete. But that place does not exist. That image is only a distraction. It pulls you away from the present, and the present moment is the only place where joy ever lives. When you stop trying to find joy elsewhere, you discover it here. Trying to feel joyful blocks the feeling of joy. The mind turns happiness into a task, something to accomplish, something to measure. It begins to work for joy, and working for joy is the surest way to miss it. You cannot force a flower to bloom by pulling on its petals. You can only create the space for it to open naturally. Joy is like that flower. It does not respond to force. It unfolds when you stop interfering. The desire to be happy is actually a form of resistance. You are rejecting the way you feel now, hoping the next moment will rescue you. But joy cannot come to someone who is running from what is. If you resist this moment, you resist life itself. Joy does not come from avoiding discomfort or escaping what you feel. It comes from allowing the moment to be exactly as it is, without judgment, without pressure to change. When you stop searching for joy, you become present enough to feel life again. You begin to notice sensations, sounds, textures, breath. Joy hides inside awareness, not emotion. It is not the excitement of the mind, but the aliveness of being. When you stop demanding happiness, you make room for presence. And presence reveals a quiet contentment that does not depend on circumstances. Joy was not gone. You were distracted. Joy does not need a reason. It does not need perfect conditions. It does not require success, attention, relationships, or achievement. The mind may believe that joy must be justified, that you must earn it through accomplishment or emotional intensity. But joy is unconditional. It belongs to awareness itself. The moment you no longer expect joy from anything outside of you, you feel the peace that was always within you. When joy is no longer a destination, it becomes a companion. You no longer hold your life hostage to outcomes. You no longer wait for a better moment before you allow yourself to open. You stop postponing peace, and without that wait, something soft emerges. You begin to feel the simplicity of existence, the quiet satisfaction of breath, the comfort of a silent space. Joy grows in the absence of demand. Joy is subtle, and searching is loud. Searching makes noise in the mind, questions, expectations, comparisons. Joy lives in silence. You cannot hear it while you are asking, "How can I be happy?" It is only heard when you stop asking. When the questions fall quiet, joy appears as a stillness rather than a feeling. It is not an emotion to chase, it is a presence to enter. You do not need to understand joy to feel it. Understanding belongs to the mind. Joy belongs to being. The more the mind tries to explain happiness, the more it interferes with it. Joy does not need explanation or meaning. It needs spaciousness. To stop looking for joy is to trust that life can be enough without your control. And in that trust, a gentle freedom arises. When you stop trying to manipulate your emotional state, your emotions soften on their own. Even sadness becomes lighter because you are not using it to define yourself. Even pain becomes less heavy because you are not resisting it. Joy does not replace pain. It holds it gently. It says, "You do not need to fight." In that acceptance, a deeper peace arrives, not by eliminating feelings, but by letting them flow without struggle. The mind believes joy must be intense to be real, but real joy is quiet. It does not overwhelm. It does not demand attention. It is so natural that the mind often overlooks it. But when thinking slows down, you begin to sense it in ordinary moments. The taste of tea, a soft breeze, the warmth of your hands. This quiet joy was always present. Searching made it invisible. Stopping the search is not giving up. It is giving space. It is stepping out of the way so life can breathe through you. This openness is not laziness, it is clarity. It allows you to live without using the moment as a means to an end. You become receptive instead of restless. You become aware instead of desperate. Joy enters through receptivity, not pursuit. Searching for joy is rooted in fear, the fear that without happiness, something is wrong with you. But when you stop searching, you discover there was nothing wrong. The fear dissolves. You begin to trust the natural rhythm of life, the ups and downs, the waves of emotion. Joy is not the absence of waves. It is the awareness that is never moved by them. Joy returns when effort dissolves, not because you achieved peace, but because peace was revealed when effort left the mind. The more you try to control your inner experience, the more you resist the natural flow of life. Letting go is not inaction. It is allowing. It is saying yes to this moment as it is. In that yes, joy is free to appear. When you stop looking, you stop arguing with the present moment. And when you stop arguing with the present moment, you stop arguing with yourself. Joy is not found by becoming someone different. It is found by accepting the one who is here right now. Presence is self-acceptance, and self-acceptance is the soil where joy naturally grows. Life does not ask you to feel joyful. It asks you to be present. Joy is simply the fragrance of presence. You do not need to chase the fragrance. You only need to enter the garden. The more present you are, the more quietly joyful life becomes. Joy becomes not something you seek, but something you notice. It comes to the one who is open. Nothing needs to change for joy to appear. Not your past, not your future, not your circumstances. Only your relationship with the moment needs to change. The moment is not a waiting room for something greater. It is the doorway to everything sacred. When you stop searching somewhere else, you walk through that doorway. Joy did not leave you. You left the moment. When you return, joy meets you immediately, not with excitement, but with stillness, not with intensity, but with depth, not with promises, but with presence. Joy is not an emotion you feel. It is the awareness that feels everything. To stop looking for joy is to stop running from life. It is to be here, to breathe here, to see here, to let experience unfold without needing it to satisfy the mind. When you are here, joy does not need to arrive. It is already here, behind the breath, beneath sensation, within awareness. Joy returns when you stop trying to possess it. It returns when you stop trying to deserve it. Joy does not belong to the future. It belongs to presence. When the search ends, joy is revealed as the natural state of being. You do not need more from life. You only need to stop leaving it. When you no longer chase joy, you become aware that joy was never something you could chase, because joy is not outside of you. It is what remains when the mind stops running. It is the quiet recognition, I am here, and being here is enough. Joy was never something you needed to create. It was never something to chase, or something you needed to earn through effort. Joy has always been the nature of awareness itself. It appears the moment you stop demanding life to give you more than what is here. Nothing is missing from your life, only your attention has wandered. You are not empty, you are simply distracted by a mind that keeps pulling you into a future that has not arrived, and a past that no longer exists. Joy doesn't need intensity, it doesn't need excitement, it doesn't need life to change before you can feel it. It only asks you to stop looking everywhere else and rest in the moment that is already happening. When you become present, your thoughts lose their urgency and life begins to breathe again. The small things come alive. A quiet morning, a simple breath, the warmth of your own existence. Joy is not an emotion you wait for. It is what remains when there is nothing left to search for. And when you finally stop chasing happiness, happiness stops running away. Not because you found something new, but because you returned to what was always here.